Today's video is really quite a bit different from the usual kind of video that I make, but I've found that as I've ridden my bike around the country lanes and trails of southern Ontario, I've picked up stories here or there, and sometimes those stories can affect me really quite profoundly. And it's one of those stories that I'd like to share with you today. This is one of my favourite roads in the area. In fact, it's one of the best roads I've ridden on in all of Ontario, so far at least anyway. It's not necessarily spectacular. It's got beautiful rolling hills which are really nice to ride on, and the scenery is always lovely, and it just has a really nice, peaceful, tranquil feel on it. Even though today it's a little bit busier. I think the farm just up the road is having some kind of winter fest, so I'm seeing a lot of cars turning in there. But any time of year, this is just a beautiful road to ride on. And so having ridden and run on this road for several years, I was quite surprised when I learned about 5 years ago that just up the road, about half a kilometre, was the scene of quite a horrific murder that occurred in 1972. And that murder remained unsolved until just a couple of years ago. On the cold morning of November the 30th, 1972, two area residents out for a morning walk made a gruesome discovery. On a small gravel lane just off 16th Side Road in King City was a lifeless body of a young female. The resulting police investigation revealed that the body was that of 16-year-old Yvonne Leroux, and that the cause of her death was blunt force trauma to the back of her head. It also appeared that she had been violated prior to her death. Yvonne had last been seen around 10 p.m. on the previous evening as she left a teen counselling group at the clinic near to the York Finch Hospital. Yvonne's story is far more complex and even more tragic than it at first appears. As a young child, Yvonne had been described by her mother Diana as being industrious, smart, and a little too independent. Her father Jerry described her as brave and said that she would fight for what she believed in. According to her parents, Yvonne's life started to unravel. She started hanging out with a bad crowd, hitchhiking without fear, and presenting herself as being far older than her actual age. Yvonne's bright start to her life would come to a crashing end on Canada Day in 1971. That evening she took her younger brother, Joey, to a fireworks celebration. Joey returned home, but without Yvonne. Yvonne returned home much later than her brother, sometime around 11 p.m, and she reported to her mother that she had been viciously violated and assaulted by 4 male youths. Charges were laid on all 4 youths, only to be withdrawn 6 months later, and soon after that Yvonne ran away from home. Reported sightings of her in Windsor, Ontario had her mother out searching the area, but to no avail. Yvonne was not found. 9 months later, Yvonne returned home. She told her mother she got mixed up with a motorcycle gang in Windsor, although she never revealed the name of the gang. Despite her previous troubles, Yvonne started to piece her life together. She was attending school, she secured a job, and she was going to teen counselling at York Finch Hospital. And it was as she left counselling that somebody whose identity remained unknown for over 50 years crossed her path and ultimately took her life on this quiet, sombre stretch of country road. The York Regional Police Service never gave up on this case. It was advancements in genetic genealogy that allowed investigators to identify a suspect from DNA that had been left at the crime scene. Although the suspect's DNA was not on the system, The popularity of online genealogy services where people trace their ancestry have meant that relatives of the suspect could be identified, and eventually this led to the offender himself, Bruce Charles Cantillon. Cantillon, who was 26 at the time of the murder, was living in Toronto and was well known to the Toronto police, having committed a string of violent offences against women. Despite identifying him, it was discovered that 19 months after committing the murder, Cantillon took his own life. Although he was identified positively as the killer, he never paid the price for his abhorrent actions. Or maybe he did. Maybe he was so tormented by what he had done that he couldn't live with himself. I hope the last thing that he thought of was Yvonne and how much better she was than him. Every murder is, of course, absolutely horrific, but what really had an effect on me with this one was that having faced such adversity and such a difficult period in her life, it seems that she was on the brink of turning everything around, and then this absolutely horrific tragedy struck her. And especially with someone so young, you always wonder what would have become of them. Anyway, it is really cold, so I'm not sure how long this ride is going to be, but I'm just going to head up the road because I've got something else of interest to show you. So tucked behind me through those trees, and you probably can't see it at all at the moment, is a residence, and it was built in the early 70s, and it's actually a castle. I believe at the moment it's empty. It sold last October, I think. Just have a think about how much you think that it's sold for. So it's King City, which is in Vaughan. It's on 5 acres and it's an 8,000 square foot residence, and it's by no means is it derelict inside. So I'll give you 3 choices: 2.7 million, 3.9 million, or 5.4 million. And you've got as long as it takes me to cycle up to the front entrance to guess. And the answer? 2.7 million. Now, yeah, that's I don't have that in my pocket at the moment, and it does actually sound like an awful lot of money to me. But in terms of a house that size and in this area, that's ridiculous. Someone did speculate, or maybe they didn't, they know, they have credible information, but they said that they believe it's going to be turned into some sort of a theme bed and breakfast. And I could see that. It's either going to be a complete teardown, or somebody has to really lean in and embrace the whole sort of castle nature and the whole spirit of the building. There's an old Celtic saying that goes something like this: a bike ride is not complete unless you've seen at least 2 castles. And if you believe that, then I would advise you to be very, very careful when someone calls you on the telephone and tells you that you're the heir to a $40 million inheritance. Having said that, there is another castle not too far up the road, which we'll take a ride over there. This one is actually definitely somebody's residence, and it's in a much more sort of open environment. So we'll just take a quick little ride past and have a fairly discreet look. I don't want to make it seem like we're gawking at them. But yeah, hold on tight and it won't take us too long to get there. I do hope you've enjoyed this video and coming along for the ride with me. It did kind of occur to me when I was riding along here and sort of picking up all of these different sites and landmarks, so that's another reason why I like cycling. You kind of get to see the world in a little bit more detail than you do when you're flashing by in a car. If you have enjoyed the video, please remember, as always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I shall see you on the next ride.